I've probably used this cliche several times on the show before, but truly, a week in politics is a really long time. Floyd Shivambu, the now former Umkhonto weSizwe Secretary General and now ordinary member of the National Assembly, probably agrees with me on this one. There appears to be divisions now over Shivambu's apparent demotion following his visit to fugitive Shepherd Bushiri during his trip to Malawi. And speaking of dramatic changes, it's very clear that the bromance between US President Donald Trump and Elon Musk is over if the SpaceX owner's comments about the latter's policy and the later comments that were made on social media are anything to go by. I'm Ziyanda Ngcobo, and this is your Week in Politics. Floyd Shivambu's removal from the position of Secretary General of the Umkhonto weSizwe Party has been met with mixed reaction, with some in the organization expressing utter disappointment at the redeployment. On Tuesday, the party said this move follows Shivambu's trip to Malawi, where he visited controversial pastor fugitive Shepherd Bushiri. The MK party's highest decision-making body found that Shivambu's trek violated the party's constitution.
Due to the various nature of this matter and its implications for the party, its image, values and principles, the President and national officials were left with no other option but to act swiftly in addressing this matter. Consequently, as a responsible organization accountable to its electorate and the broader society, the national officials have come to a decision to redeploy Commander Floyd Shivambu as the Secretary General of the party and redeploying him to the National Assembly.
But just last week, Shivambu told Newzroom Afrika that he doesn't regret his visit to Malawi, and the ensuing backlash was, quote, misplaced exuberance. Even more curiously, Shivambu intimated that MK Party President Jacob Zuma knew about his trek prior to seeing Bushiri, which begs the question of whether he's been thrown under the bus, or even more than that, if there's more to this demotion than what meets the eye. This was him just a week ago here at our Randburg studios.
I never apologized on, and I will never apologize on, is when I went to see Prophet Shepherd Bushiri and then he said, let's go to church. I said, I will go to church. I'm like those who say that I am glad when they say unto you, let us go into the house of the Lord. There was just unnecessary misplaced exuberance around it, because I'm not responsible for law enforcement in South Africa, one, but two, as a matter of fact, there is no court ruling in Malawi within the criminal justice system that links both countries that has instructed that he must be deported to South Africa.
From claiming that he'll never apologize for the Bushiri saga to a complete change of tune 4 days later to this.
On behalf of myself and everyone else who is involved, we want to regret that the decision in terms of the visit to Malawi was not consistent with the constitution of Umkhonto weSizwe, as is reflected in the statement. And we fully accept the new responsibility.
In a very brief question and answer session, Zuma emphasized that it was important to consider the views of their voters.
If there are people in the country who feel not good about what has happened, without them knowing the details, it was important that we tell the country what has happened and why this, why do we take this decision? Because we have to respect the population, that we are very serious to tell them that they must vote for us, all of them.
Despite the mixed reaction, one political analyst is of the view that Shivambu's move to the National Assembly is not a demotion. He believes the former Secretary General remains an asset to the party and the matter could have been handled differently.
One, the MK party leadership is saying that he flouted subsection J of the Constitution. That is basically a punitive measure, which means that we have violated the Constitution, therefore you will be punished. So then that is a separate matter. But on the other hand, we have a Floyd Shivambu who has done well for the organization since he was appointed into the position of SG. He's an asset, but I still maintain the point that I would have handled it differently. I would have said Floyd Shivambu has performed in this portfolio. We are now moving him to the national office, national parliament, where he's going to continue representing the party. And then handle him flouting a subsection J as a different matter. But of course, the leadership has taken a decision, and as I said, no more interview on this matter.
Besides the Bushiri trip, Shivambu's leadership style within the Umkhonto we Sizwe party has been cited as a part of the reason why he had to go. And for those who used to work with Shivambu at his former political home, this is what they had to say about his impending return to Parliament.
I don't work with Floyd anyway. Parliament or soccer match or anything. I don't work with Floyd. I'm going to into a Floyd. So I'm not getting involved. I have Queen here. So it's not a problem. We are in Parliament. We are working in Parliament. And that's it. If he comes to Parliament, he will find us rolling. The Parliament now is run by young boys. Young people are running that thing. And if he comes then thinks he can impose himself on them, they are already ready for him.
The National Prosecuting Authority's reputation is in tatters with yet another flop on a growing list of failures. The NPA was dealt another blow in the asbestos case involving former Free State Premier Ace Magashule. Judge Philip Lobcha found that the way in which the prosecuting authority extradited Morwadi Cholota, the former personal assistant to Magashule, back to South Africa was done in an unlawful manner. Lobcha cited the failure to follow proper procedures as the Minister of Justice is the only one empowered to have led the process and not the NPA. Newzroom Africa's politics reporter Junior Kumalo was tracking that story in Bloemfontein for us this week and has the story.
Tears of joy inside the Bloemfontein High Court on Tuesday for Morwadi Cholota, the former PA to ex-Free State Premier Ace Magashule. This after the court found that her extradition from the United States of America was unlawful and that the South African justice system therefore has no jurisdiction to try her in relation to the Free State asbestos corruption matter.
The extradition of Ms. Cholota from the United States of America to the Republic of South Africa is declared to have been done unlawfully for want of a valid and lawful request for her extradition by the South African executive power. Secondly, this court does not have the jurisdiction to try Ms. Cholota on the offences she is charged with. Cholota, you are free to leave.
Senior State Prosecutor Johan Dination had in his closing arguments requested that the court disregard the argument around wrongful procedure in the extradition process. According to him, such arguments had not been set out from the onset by Cholota's legal team. However, Lobcha said the plea of unlawful extradition was grounds enough to also consider procedures followed.
If something was done unlawfully in the extradition process, that wrong can never be cured by a failure to plead same in the special plea. After all, it was at least pleaded that the extradition was unlawful.
Speaking to Newzroom Africa after Lobcha's judgment, Cholota's father revealed that the family will be pursuing a civil claim against the state.
It has affected us a lot, but it will give us a little bit brief so that we must start planning forward what's going to be the next step. As she was willing to study further, that is what we are going to pursue against the NPA, that she must go back to school and they must carry all the cost and the wasted time that they have managed to bring us on daily basis on this court.
But the NPA on Tuesday was still confident that it would win the matter on appeal and that the ruling would not affect the main asbestos case in which Morwadi was meant to be their star witness.
We really are taken aback by the judgment itself, because you'll recall the view that we held, that it was more of an appeal in South Africa on a foreign state judgment in circumstances where they had not utilized or explored the appeal processes in the United States. However, because it is a judgment that has the effect of a final order, we are allowed or permitted to appeal it. But at the moment, we'll have to regroup as a team and reflect on the judgment and see if we can identify grounds upon which the judgment could be appealed, given its impact.
Meanwhile, Justice Minister Mamoloko Gubai has ordered a comprehensive review of all extradition cases currently before her. The Bloemfontein High Court found that a 2024 Supreme Court of Appeal judgment stands, confirming that only the Justice Minister, not the NPA, has the authority to initiate an extradition. The credibility of the NPA has come under fire once again after losing the case against Charlotte's extradition. The National Director of Public Prosecutions, Shamila Batoyi, made a shocking revelation during a wide-ranging interview that she believes the organization she runs has been infiltrated.
I can say that I have not had interference from any members of the executive whilst I have been the national director. But what I do want to say is that there are other issues that I can't really speak about that actually makes me worry sometimes, that the NPA is actually being infiltrated by people that do not have the rule of law at heart. I don't sleep comfortably at night because of that, not because I think that the NPA is a failing organization.
So what do you mean?
I can't speak a lot about this, but I am concerned about the attacks on the NPA, on the national director, and the reasons for this.
From one court loss to another, this time French arms company Thales and former President Jacob Zuma failed in their bid to have the charges of fraud, money laundering and corruption against them dropped. The defense manufacturer argued that the death of two witnesses would compromise their right to a fair trial, but Judge Nkosinathi clearly found that the court is not empowered to withdraw the charges and that these concerns can be addressed during the trial. Newzroom Afrika's Nobuhle Modise has the details from the Pietermaritzburg High Court.
Another failed legal bid for former President Jacob Zuma. The Pietermaritzburg High Court has dismissed an application for a permanent stay of prosecution. Zuma and the French arms company Thales had both filed for all the charges against them to be dropped, and Thales had claimed that two key witnesses in the matter, who were former directors in the company, have since died and they will not be able to be cross-examined. Therefore, this might lead to an unfair trial. Judge Nkosinathi clearly ruling that he does not see how this will form any prejudice and that this can continue. Jacob Zuma had also piggybacked on that particular reasoning, saying that the death of these two key witnesses will also infringe on his rights to a fair trial. And now the court is saying that they have 14 days to appeal this particular legal bid, as well as you'd remember that this case has now been adjourned to the 4th of December. This is to allow both the prosecution as well as the defense to come up with dates for the trial in 2026.
It is our hope that there will not be any more interlocutory application that would have the undesirable effect or consequence or implication of delaying the quite protracted trial that has been running for over 20 years. We had maintained that they had rehashed an application that was dismissed sometime in 2018, which was dismissed by the full bench of the very court that now delivered this judgment that dismissed the application. There is also an application for leave to appeal by Mr. Zuma, which unfortunately may have the undesirable effect of delaying the trial from resuming. But we're hoping that these matters could be finalized before the matter could resume.
This week, the EFF also took Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana to court on an urgent basis to halt the proposed fuel levy as outlined in Budget 3.0, with the aim of raising around 4 billion rand. On Tuesday, a full bench of the Western Cape High Court heard arguments as to why the 15 and 16 cents tariff for diesel and fuel respectively should not take effect on Wednesday. The Red Berets lost their court bid after the judges found the application lacked urgency.
It's an unanimous order by the three of us, and the order reads as follows. Having heard the legal representatives for the applicant and the first respondents, and having read the documents filed of record, it is ordered: 1. The application is dismissed with costs. 2. The applicant is to pay the first respondent's cost.
Despite the legal blow, the EFF has vowed to challenge the levy through parliamentary processes.
Petrol will be up by 16 cents, diesel will be up by 15 cents. And we will continue to fight in the committee, as we are doing right now. There's members of parliament in the committee that are arguing, and also we'll go to the two houses, the National Council of Provinces and the NA, to still disagree with the minister, because this is not how he should exercise his powers.
After the break, we turn our attention to the epic showdown between Donald Trump and Elon Musk on social media on Thursday. The former besties are now at each other's throats, releasing receipts in what the world has called the big, beautiful breakup. And South Africans and Americans are having the time of their lives. And here at home, the inquest into the deaths of the Cradock 4 got off to an emotional start for the families that are still seeking answers. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're still watching Your Week in Politics here on Channel 405. Well, 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 how the mighty have fallen. If you happen to not be watching the news on Thursday or living under a rock somewhere, you definitely would have missed the volcanic exchanges between US President Donald Trump and Elon Musk. It all began earlier this week when the former special government employee slammed Trump's proposed spending bill, which he called the Big Beautiful Bill. But Musk described the prospective legislation as a disgusting abomination. Take a listen to this to get a sense of how this bromance came to an end.
But I'm very disappointed in Elon. I've helped Elon a lot.
The alliance between President Donald Trump and billionaire Elon Musk has quickly disintegrated in a very public breakup.
But I'm very disappointed because Elon knew the inner workings of this bill better than almost anybody sitting here, better than you people. He knew everything about it. He had no problem with it.
Trump started the feud in remarks from the Oval Office on Thursday. Musk then hit back with posts on his social media platform X saying, quote, "Without me, Trump would have lost the election. Such ingratitude." He even said yes to a post that said Trump should be impeached. Trouble between the two have been brewing all week, after Musk on Tuesday started denouncing Trump's sweeping tax cut and spending bill.
Look, Elon and I had a great relationship. I don't know if we're well anymore.
Trump has now threatened to cut off government contracts with Musk's companies, which has led to the billionaire announcing that his rocket company SpaceX will begin decommissioning its Dragon spacecraft immediately.
Newzroom Afrika's US correspondent Simon Marks has the latest reaction from Washington.
It is a new day in American politics after President Donald Trump and Elon Musk engaged in a breathtaking race to the bottom on social media, like two characters in the worst Marvel movie you've ever watched. The most powerful man on the planet and the wealthiest man on the planet using their own respective social media platforms to rip each other apart. All of this started with Elon Musk's determination to derail President Trump's tax and spending bill. The president calls it a big, beautiful piece of legislation. Mr. Musk calls it a massive abomination, claiming it will swell America's budget deficit, erase all of the efforts that Mr. Musk made to cut public expenditure when he headed Trump's so-called Department of Government Efficiency, and will spark a recession. President Trump refutes all of those allegations and says Mr. Musk simply objects to the legislation because he has belatedly realised that it ends the US government's mandate on electric vehicles, repealing a measure that makes it a formal government priority to shift away from cars powered by fossil fuels and shift towards cars like Elon Musk's Tesla vehicles powered only by electricity. But as the feud between the two men intensified, Mr. Musk insisted that he had no advance knowledge of what was in the legislation, believes that his money and support were the principal reasons for President Trump's election win last November, accused the president of ingratitude, suggested that he should be impeached, and dropped what he called the really big bomb, claiming that Donald Trump's name is contained in the Epstein files relating to disgraced and deceased financier Jeffrey Epstein. That is the real reason they have not been made public, said Mr. Musk. President Trump said he was considering cancelling all of the federal government's contracts with Mr. Musk's businesses, including SpaceX, which lies at the heart of NASA's strategy to return to the moon. Shares in Tesla crashed, losing more than $150 billion in market value, as Democrats in Congress called for the immediate release of the Epstein files, and President Trump's former political advisor Steve Bannon demanded that the government should not only cancel all Mr. Musk's contracts, but even launch an immigration investigation in how he came to secure American citizenship after moving first to Canada, then the United States, from South Africa. This is a real political crisis now for President Trump. It raises fresh questions about how on earth he came to include Elon Musk within his inner circle in the first place, never mind giving him almost limitless powers for the first 3 months of his second term in office. Mr. Musk on Thursday posited funding a centrist political party to challenge both the Republicans and the Democrats, underscoring his ability to pose a major threat to the president's Make America Great Again movement during next term's midterm elections here and the race for the White House in 2028. What all this means for US policy with South Africa is unclear, but Mr. Musk has been a powerful whisperer in the ear of President Trump, fueling the president's belief in disinformation about the Expropriation Act and the specious claim that there is a genocide in South Africa that the American media is conspiring to cover up. Certainly Mr. Musk's access to that presidential ear now appears to be over. But President Trump may already be realizing that it was always going to be safer to have Mr. Musk inside the presidential tent rather than outside it, threatening to burn it down.
The ghosts and scars of our racially divisive past continue to haunt our country as the various inquiries looking into how freedom fighters died continue. This week, the inquest into the 1985 killings of the Cradock Four began. It's aimed at retracing the final steps of the men who became icons of the anti-apartheid struggle. Earlier this week, the court conducted an on-site inspection as a part of efforts to understand the events surrounding the abductions and murders of Fort Kalata, Matthew Goniwe, Sparrow Mkhonto and Escelo Mhlauli. And as the journey to finding closure continues, Asipa Kema reports the country has also relived the emotional toll that this 40-year-old truth-seeking mission has taken on loved ones.
Inside the Gqeberha High Court, the fourth day of the reopened inquest began with more testimony, this time from those closest to the Cradock Four. One of the first witnesses, Professor Derek Swartz, remembers the last conversation he had with Matthew Goniwe shortly before the four men drove off towards the set-up roadblock.
We agreed that he would not stop unless it would be a police car or a traffic warden. That was our last sort of conversation at the car itself, and so on. And then I think he left at about 9. I maybe not quite right about the time, but it wasn't too late, but it certainly wasn't early evening. It was already getting dark at the time. Yes. And that was the last we spoke.
Fort Kalata's son, Lukhanyo, took the stand next. In his emotional opening statement, he told the court how his family had lived with pain and silence for 4 decades.
To stand here today in court, ma'am, 40 years after my father was killed, I feel has been a real terrible travesty. It's a real injustice in ways that I don't think I've got the vocabulary to describe. Other than the fact that for the last 40 years we've had to grow up with pieces of our souls missing.
Galata's testimony also unpacked chilling details from apartheid amnesty records, revealing how state operatives planned the assassinations.
The security branch intelligence sent operatives Jacob Jan Hendrik or Jaap van Jaarsveld and Basie Bouwer to assess the most appropriate way of killing Goniwe and Khalad. Van Jaarsveld cautioned against attempting to kill the targets in Craddock and proposed that they be taken out on a deserted road.
Swartz says he will never forgive the people who killed the anti-apartheid activists.
Time heals all wounds, eh? But I can tell you, I've never forgiven the people for what they've done. It's just very difficult. There were other options available to take us out of the equation, and for me personally, I still feel pain to this very day.
That's a wrap from me this week. There'll be plenty on the go in the coming days here on Channel 405, including the President delivering a keynote address at the Green Hydrogen Summit in Cape Town. Ramaphosa will also travel to Canada next week for the G7 Leaders Summit. And with this Tusk breakup, the sidelines conversations are going to be anything less than interesting. But for now, it's goodbye. Thanks for watching.